I'm really curious who it is that would come to set because he loves movies and then up the movie because he just can't find it within himself to shut the hell up. Welcome back to The Rank. I'm John, and today I'm going to be ranking the second episode of the first season of The Studio, titled The Oner, written by Peter Hyke and directed by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. So let's dive into this and see how this one does in comparison to other sitcoms I've been ranking and the previous episode. So we're going to start with the potent notables. So this series marks the third collaboration between Seth Rogen and Paul Dano. Now, Paul Dano was in the previous episode, so maybe I should have put it in that potent notable, but I didn't.
Okay, that's my bad.
You're getting it now. Deal with it, I guess. But Seth Rogen was in the Steven Spielberg biopic film The Fabelmans with Paul Dano and in the film Dumb Money with Paul Dano, which I liked both of those.
Very good movies.
Despite looking and feeling like one elongated shot, this episode was actually filmed in 4 chunks since production could only shoot for about 90 minutes a day. Plus, the cast and crew were only shooting during that magical yet fickle sunset lighting, which is what they show in the episode that they're having to deal with. So it's a very meta episode, really.
Totally meta.
And finally, on May 6th, it was reported that The Studio was renewed for a second season on Apple TV+. So it looks like we'll get at least another 10 episodes for The Studio on The Rank.
Yay.
I'm sure you're all very happy. That's it. Those are the potent notables. Let's go on to the episode overview. So here we go. Another episode of The Studio. And just as the first episode gave us the indication, this show is going to be employing some cringe comedy. Interestingly, I think it was actually handled better in this episode than the last. But I don't really blame them too much for that, as the pilot has to give you a decent enough story to get you interested in watching another episode, while also giving you enough exposition to get you invested in the characters. So it's a fine line for a pilot to walk. Now, in this episode, they take what we know about the characters and run with it. Matt is neurotic and a cinephile. Sal is a good friend, loves his job, but doesn't care about the art form as much as Matt does. Patty is working on becoming an independent producer. So those are sort of the 3 personalities that are sort of the main thrust of this episode. I mean, you're going to get the Sarah Polley, who plays herself as the director of the movie within this episode. And then you get Greta Lee, who is the lead actress of the movie that's being made during this episode, which all makes it sound very convoluted. It's not really. So that's what we know going in. We know those characters, and what they give us is a fast-paced, cringe-worthy comedic jaunt through what it's like to film a oner on a movie set. Now, we talked about oners in the previous episode because there was a lot of them in that. This whole series has a lot of oners, and you can tell that probably Seth and Evan, both like that as an art form. But it's also fun because Matt mentions a bookend a lot in this episode, and that's exactly what we get in this episode as well as the last episode. I actually talked about it having a bookend, and they do the same thing in this one. Him and Sal are driving to set in the beginning, and then they're driving away from set at the end. So it's a good flow. So it's a well put together episode with a lot more comedic moments seemingly than the last, though my laugh counter sort of belies what I just said a little bit, but we'll get to that. I think the frenetic energy of this episode makes it feel funnier and lighter than it maybe actually was, which is not a bad problem to have. So far, The Studio seems to be a little bit more interesting to watch than funny, which again is not a bad problem, except that, it's a comedy. So if you're getting a low laugh counter as far as The Rank is concerned, then it's not going to end up giving you a super high score. So essentially, this entire episode is Matt wanting to be on set to watch a oner get filmed because it's his favorite part of his job. And Sal and Patty are doing everything in their power to try to get him to leave the set. And this, of course, doesn't work as Matt continues to fuck up the scene throughout the entire episode. And on top of them trying to get him out, Matt is learning that the only reason people are talking to him and being nice to him is to get something from him. So Sarah Polley, wants him to okay a Rolling Stones song, which is going to cost $800,000. And then Greta Lee, the star of the movie within the episode, is being nice to him and flattering him because she wants to take a private jet for all the press touring. She complains about having to go commercial for Past Lives and how the movie didn't have any money, which was another really sort of inside Hollywood fun little jab because that's what I know her from. It was nominated for Best Picture 2 years ago, and it was a great movie, Past Lives. Just sort of fun. Essentially, I had more fun watching this episode than the last, and I can see where it's headed and have a good idea of who the characters are. So I think that's really positive going into more episodes. I'm looking forward to more. It really feels like Matt is not a good studio head, at least so far. He seems pretty inept and bumbling, but I don't know. People keep saying that it's accurate, so I'm really curious who it is that would come to set because he loves movies and then fuck up the movie because he just can't find it within himself to shut the hell up. But anyway, without giving away spoilers or going into too much detail, that's pretty much the episode. So let's go into the rank.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the episode based on 5 categories: story, acting, dialogue, episode coherence, and character relatability. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, and then I add the laugh counter at the end, which is where I tally up the amount of times that the episode made me laugh. 1 point per laugh out loud, and that gets added to the score. So the first category is story. I gave story a 5. I think this is a fantastic story. It's tight and succinct. It's taking place over the course of about 30 minutes, and they're trying to get a one-er scene shot, and Matt basically makes it impossible. That's the whole story of the episode, but like, for a sitcom, you don't need a super convoluted story. You just need a good enough story that hooks you in and that doesn't lose itself as it goes. So let's go to acting, which I gave a 4.5. The acting is surprisingly excellent. I was surprised by the acting in the last episode, and it seemed to have gotten better in this one. Seth Rogen and Ike Barinholtz are excellent, as is Catherine O'Hara. You know, maybe I should go higher, but I kind of want to like hold back and sort of see where it goes before I start throwing out 5s. So let's go to dialogue. Dialogue, I gave a 4.5. Thought the dialogue was excellent. I love the way they fed off each other. It felt sincere. The escalation of emotion was also well done, both in the writing and in the acting. So really, it was a really well put together episode. So let's go to episode coherence. Episode coherence, I gave a 5. This is essentially a bottle episode, so there's not much coherence necessary for this, but even so, it's masterly done. Every shot matters, every moment matters, and everything comes into play. Nothing is left out, and nothing is included for no reason. There's a lot of attention to detail in this. I was really impressed by this episode. And then we'll go to the last category, which is character relatability, which I gave a 4.25. They're all more relatable than the last episode, but I still find Matt a little hard to relate to because he seems so inept and unaware. I'm not saying that there aren't inept people out there and that there aren't people that just seem to be oblivious. It feels a little too exaggerated, and maybe that's silly because a lot of this is sort of exaggeration. It tends to like take me out of empathy with Matt. I'm like, why are you fucking doing that? Still, 4.25 is not a bad score. So let's go to the laugh counter. Now, I've just been singing its praises, right? And unfortunately, when I counted up the amount of times it actually made me laugh, it's pretty low. It's only 10.
That's not very funny.
The fact that the episode is so good, it's saving itself from a low laugh counter because the total for this episode comes out to a 33.25, which puts it directly in the mediocre tier. And I guess since we didn't talk about the tiers on the last one, just real quick, just so you guys know, the first episode, the promotion, was a total score of 27.25. So those extra 3 laughs actually would have boosted it into the mediocre tier, but unfortunately didn't get those extra 3 laughs. So it went into the rank it and regret it tier, which, you know, I feel sort of bad about, but look, you're a comedy. You got to get more laughs than what we're getting. Now, I'm not gonna assume that everybody is watching, Tuesday's episode as well as Thursday's episode and Saturday and Sunday. So just real quick, I want to let you know, as you just heard, we're doing tiers now. So that being said, we set up a tier list from funny to not good is meaning of life, holy grail, I'd watch it again, mediocre, which is where this one landed, rank it and regret it, which is where the previous episode landed, and disaster piece. So those are going to be the 6 tiers. We're going to have that on the website. You can go and check that out. I'm hoping that what that does is it gives you a better idea of where these actually stand. So that being said, if you enjoyed the episode, if you liked the tiers or don't like the tiers, please consider commenting, letting us know how you feel about it. Subscribe, follow, do all that jazz. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/TheRankPodcast so you can support the show if you'd like, or check out archived episodes that you might enjoy. But thanks again for listening and or watching, and we'll catch you next week for the next episode of The Studio. Thanks. This is a good story, good use of writing, because
what?